Welcome from the studios of KPBS TV in San Diego, California. We are reaching you live through a unique and complex international telecommunications network via satellite, microwave, and cable. The International Training Center at San Diego State University brings us all together in this video conference, which joins distinguished organizations located in Mexico, Cuba, the Dominican Republic, Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia, Venezuela, Peru, Ecuador, Brazil, Bolivia, Paraguay, Argentina, Spain, the United States of America, including the Organization of American States in Washington, D.C., and the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, known as UNCTAD, in Geneva, Switzerland. Welcome to our program, Systemic Management of Opportunity and Conflict, the Two Faces of Globalization. This is the 10th video conference in the series Foundations for Prosperity in the Third Millennium. My name is Richard Page, and I will be your moderator for today's program. I am a private attorney in San Diego with the Page firm, practicing in the areas of business and international litigation, including arbitration and mediation. Today's program is composed of 2 presentation modules and 2 question and answer sessions. We look forward to your live participation. The process of globalization has undoubtedly brought new opportunities for innovation and productive achievement. But it has also increased the challenges of controversy and conflict, which range from commercial and business disputes to international confrontation and terrorism. In most of the cases, however, a systemic or holistic approach using non-traditional negotiation and alternative dispute resolution techniques will be a decisive factor in converting this dark side of globalization into opportunities and win-win relationships. Developing the appropriate attitude and motivation among the parties involved with a true multicultural perspective will be crucial for success. This video conference will present and discuss a systems approach as applied to opportunity and conflict, which are seen as 2 sides of the same reality. The years ahead will bring us a world of great diversity in education, business, and government that will increase in complexity with more intense dynamics of opportunity and also increase tensions. Our ability to identify and pursue growth, opportunity, and profit in a socially acceptable manner and to use negotiation techniques ranging from conciliation to mediation and arbitration rather than litigation, under a broad interdisciplinary and visionary focus, will be essential elements for our future prosperity. The invited speakers will elaborate on these concepts, including the strategies and resources needed to create this capacity within our organizations. Conflict within the workplace can become an opportunity for organizational development efforts that can lead to unimaginable levels of efficiency and productivity. We will discuss various conflict prevention techniques and resolution strategies that are applicable to organizations in education, business, and government, and in any cultural context. In previous programs, the International Training Center has offered presentations by attorneys and business people in alternative dispute resolution, often referred to in English by the acronym ADR. Alternatives to litigation or going to court exist in the form of negotiation, mediation, and arbitration. In addition to courts and lawyers, organizations are designing internal programs to facilitate disputes among employees or between an employee and his or her manager. The world is globalizing, and conflicts are becoming international and cross-cultural. The existence of disputes and conflict is part of human nature. The measure of our progress is how we resolve these disputes. I have found in my personal experience that rapid change is taking place throughout the world. The chambers of commerce of a number of nations are setting up mediation and arbitration centers, and lawyers and business leaders are attending training sessions in cross-cultural techniques for dispute resolution with groups such as the American Arbitration Association, among others. We, of course, should expect this trend to continue into the next century. It is a pleasure to introduce to you today's expert speakers, Dr. Mohamed Khalil and Dr. Kenneth M. Golden. Dr. Khalil is Professor of International Business and Finance in the College of Business and Management at United States International University. He has extensive experience in teaching, research, and consulting with a strong emphasis on international finance, investment, and mutual fund management, and the management of research activities and the identification of opportunities to finance firms. Dr. Khalil is a member of the Academy of International Business, the American Finance Association, the World Affairs Council, and the Western Association of Faculty Governance, among others. Dr. Khalil holds a bachelor's degree in military science from the Royal Military Academy in Egypt and a bachelor's degree in business administration from Cairo University. He also holds an MBA and Ph.D. from the University of California at Los Angeles, known as UCLA. Dr. Golden has been an independent management consultant and trainer for the last 20 years. He has worked with a wide variety of public and private organizations, specializing in organizational behavior, leadership, team building, change management, and stress in the workplace. Dr. Golden recently accepted a position as Assistant Dean in the College of Health and Human Services at San Diego State University. He is also a visiting professor of management at Webster University in St. Louis, Missouri, and has lectured in universities in many parts of the world. Dr. Golden holds a Bachelor's of Arts degree from Tulane University and a Master's of Social Work and Doctorate of Education degrees from the University of Arkansas. Welcome, gentlemen. Let us begin with an introductory question. With today's increased globalization and the complexities that it brings to the workplace, what strategies do you recommend to capitalize on today's organizational opportunities while minimizing the potential conflicts that are an integral part of any change process? Dr. Golden?
Resistance is a natural outcome of change. When resistance is not managed wisely, that's when conflict results. I think what we need to do, and what I'd like to focus on today, is to identify potential sources of resistance and then to develop strategies to counter them or help reduce that resistance.
Thank you. Dr. Khalil?
I believe that the new millennia will bring about the manager who can plan and can forecast opportunities and forecast conflicts, and I call that the preventative manager. And once he forecasts the challenges that will be facing the organization, then he starts planning for solving and finding answers for them.
Thank you for your comments. Let us begin with Module 1, in which Dr. Khalil will describe the changes arising from globalization and the opportunities which will result in the field of international finance.
Thank you. We are living now through a very exciting period in the world history, a period which I believe is unmatched in the history of the world, a period that's producing unprecedented changes in our lives, our families, our organizations, and our societies. What's even more important is that these changes are expected to create further changes in the future. The important thing here is that these changes are also accompanied by opportunities and challenges. The questions that are facing all of us now are, first, are we consciously aware of these changes, let alone the accompanying opportunities and challenges? And second, are we ready and willing, better yet determined, to exploit and take advantage of these opportunities and face these challenges with self-confidence? I believe that I am a good student of history. I am also an optimist. I strongly believe that human beings, given the chance and given the knowledge of today's opportunities and challenges, will always be willing and ready to take advantage of the opportunities presented to them and to confront challenges facing them. My goal during today's presentation is to address the opportunities that are and will continue to be created by changes and how to exploit them. My colleague will address the challenges and how to face them. I will begin by identifying opportunities that are available to us in the new global economy. First, I will discuss several changes that are taking place around us now and which will continue to do so in the future. After listing each one of these changes, I will try to identify some of the opportunities created by each. The first major change that we are living now is the change brought about by technology. Jeremy Rifkin, in his book, The End of Work, calls current world changes that are coming about due to new technology the third economic revolution. This economic revolution is marked by a transition from limited to limitless sources of energy and from biological to mechanical sources of power. What is even more important is that technology is being generated at a faster and faster pace. Add to that the amazing speed with which new technologies have been implemented and put into use by our societies at lower and lower costs. If we consider these last few points, we can safely conclude that we are experiencing and living an economic and social revolution that's more significant than any of the other economic revolutions that the world has ever witnessed. I normally tell my students and my associates that future generations will look back on us with envy and admiration. They will marvel at the fact that we not only lived through the birth of this economic revolution, but that we were all participants in delivery and enhancement of this massive economic and social revolution. What is even more significant is that the new technologies that we are creating are self-generating to a great extent. Can we begin to imagine the opportunities that such technology is offering to the small investor? Not only that, but the opportunities available with this technology for business to raise massive amount of funds for their growth. The interesting thing that is happening now is that companies using the technology of financial trading are expanding globally. Let me give you some examples of the use of new technology in the field of finance and international finance. First, the internet and finance. All of us are by now familiar with or have heard of the use of the internet in selling and buying financial assets. In the United States, several companies have been created to do that. These companies are turning over vast numbers of stocks, bonds, initial public offerings, IPOs, and financial derivatives every single day. And they are reducing the commission per trade of these financial assets so that they are making participation in the financial markets a lot easier. Literally, any investor in the world who has a computer and internet access, and a credit card, can place an order to buy or sell from his personal computer 24 hours a day. Regardless of where he is residing, he can purchase or sell financial assets in financial market where these companies operate. The investor can also, at a click of a computer mouse, review his investment portfolio at any moment. He can research any listed company that he is interested in. He can compare it with other companies. He can review the performance of his portfolio since the first day he made his initial investment. He can receive a written report or reports on his portfolio if he chooses to at any time. He can receive all of that and more in the comfort of his home from his personal computer wherever he is in the world, 24 hours a day. What's even more interesting is that these companies are going globally. By that I mean these companies are actually in the process of starting to develop presence in different countries around the world. The meaning and significance of that is that the capital market is truly going to be international. The flow of capital across the globe will be as easy as a click of the computer mouse. An investor in Mexico can very easily scan the stock and bond markets of the world before he makes his investment decision. He can instantaneously buy a financial asset in Argentina, in Spain or Switzerland, for example. A Bolivian company can raise funds globally by using internet trading companies. Can you begin to imagine the opportunities that could be harnessed in such a situation? The second example I would like to share with you is the use of artificial intelligence, AI, in the field of finance, particularly the field of investment, and the great opportunities that the application of this technology will bring about. The AI technology was first discussed as theoretical possibility as early as 1943. Since then, several scientists have begun to seriously consider the actual invention of a machine that can think for itself. People at that time considered that as science fiction. Finally, and after many years, we now have a computer, i.e., a machine that can actually think. Several scientists have dedicated their time and effort to develop the field of artificial intelligence. To distinguish such computers from regular ones, we call them computers with artificial intelligence. The hardware and the software are both fundamentally different from regular computers. Mind you, its intelligence is still limited. It is limited in the sense that it is, in large part, confined to one dimension. Its intelligence is like a laser beam in its focus, narrow but highly concentrated. However, we are currently focusing it successfully, I might add, on the field of investment. There is a finance company that I'm associated with that is a pioneer in the development of artificial intelligence technology and its use in the field of finance. This company has been quite successful to the point that other major financial companies in the United States are moving very quickly to implement this new technology for their use. Not only that, but also other sectors in the economy are scrambling to experiment with the new technology with the hope of using it. Its use could both enhance the effectiveness and lower the cost of completing financial transactions. This was proven when manufacturers of household goods and production machines, particularly in Japan, introduced a rudimentary form of this technology in the last few years. In my consulting practice, I am currently trying to introduce the use of this technology in the field of medicine and law, in addition to finance in some Middle Eastern countries. Can you imagine the opportunities the use of this technology might offer for all of us in the near future? The second significant change that we are experiencing now is the development and fine-tuning of the global economic system. I am pleased to say that the United Nations and its agencies, particularly the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, and the World Trade Organization, WTO, are playing a significant role in the final formation of the global economic system. Look at some of the agreements that the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, the GATT, which is the predecessor to the OECD, was able to reach in its very important Uruguay round, which was agreed to on December 15, 1993. I'm referring here to the following specific agreement. Agreement to establish the World Trade Organization. Number 2, General Agreement on Trade and in Services, including finance. Number 3, Understanding on Commitments in Financial Services. And number 4, Agreement on Trade-related aspects of intellectual property rights. These agreements, among others reached in this round, are the foundations upon which the new global economic system is based. To really understand the objectives, directions, and changes presented by the new world economic system, these agreements, among others, should have to be carefully studied. Unfortunately, our limited time here will not permit us to do so. I leave this exercise to you. In conjunction with the GATT meetings and the signing of the 3 treaties, another major world event has been taking place: the collapse of the Soviet Union and the global rejection of the old communist ideology. Since these 2 events took place, the world has been moving with great speed towards the implementation of the free enterprise system and market economy. At the heart of this movement is, of course, the strengthening of the role of the private sector as a significant factor in enhancing economic growth and in the development of nations. As a result of that, a lot of privatization of government assets, government-owned assets, movement was born and spread across the world. All of these realities are creating truly golden economic opportunities. The world is beginning to witness now the birth of a new class of businessmen and businesses. The good thing about this class is that they have a strong dose of entrepreneurship. I believe that this is a very good phenomenon. This new entrepreneurial class is going into all economic sectors, implementing new ideas and taking more risks. Please try to imagine with me the great opportunity that the privatization movement, for instance, is creating now worldwide, particularly in combination with internet trading and the use of artificial intelligence, as I mentioned earlier. We can also see a third change that's sweeping the world. We see a strong trend towards opening up societies and permitting more free expression among and between peoples across the world. Now, this is not a political science or a sociology meeting. We are not going to expound on that. However, what concerns us here is that normally when we have open societies, we can expect less financial corruption. That is really what I'm interested in when I talk about open societies. I'm interested in addressing here with you financial corruption and its role in minimizing legitimate opportunities for honest people. During the South Asian financial crisis that has been going on for the last 2 years, corruption has emerged as the single factor that triggered the crisis. I'm not saying here that corruption was the fundamental reason for the crisis. What I'm saying is that corruption was the factor that triggered the crisis. The economies of most of these countries were and still are fundamentally sound. They have the resources, particularly the human resources, that can and did create a solid economy. What happened is that corruption crept in and, among other things, caused these economies to suffer. Unfortunately, we now hear about the same thing happening in Russia and some of the East European countries. Even the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, and some of the authorities here in the US are claiming that corruption in Russia is one of the major reasons that the Russian economy has not been able to grow and take advantage of new opportunities. With open societies that guarantee freedom of expression, corruption and its damage might be easily checked or minimized. However, I would like to add something here. Ladies and gentlemen, corruption is everywhere. It is present in the industrialized countries as well as in developing countries. It is present in open societies and closed society. The difference is that in open societies, corruption is easier to spot and its effect could be minimized. The fourth change that I'm observing now, and which I believe could and would bring about great opportunities, is the beginning of change in the attitude of lender countries towards borrower ones. As we know, for a long time, several developing countries in Latin America, Africa, and parts of Asia have been borrowing capital to invest in the development of their economies. They have been borrowing mainly from the industrially developed countries. Both the governments and the financial institutions of these industrial countries funded these loans. In a good number of cases of these loans, both the terms of the loans and the management of the funding process of these loans were such that the majority of the borrower countries are unable to pay these loans back on schedule. Taking into account the total size of this debt, which I estimate to be at over $1 trillion by now, and the obvious inability of the majority of the borrower countries to pay, I call that the international debt crisis. It is truly a world financial crisis, particularly for the part of these loans that is owed to private international financial institutions. It obviously endangered the financial health of some of these major international lending institutions. It could also severely impact the economies of these financial institutions in case of default by borrower countries. That in turn might cause a major disruption in world trade and world growth. Ultimately, it could delay the final implementation of a true global economic system. So it is very serious. In the last few days, we have all read that the President of the United States, Bill Clinton, announced that his government is going to forgive all the debt owed the United States by 36 of the world's poorest countries. He said, and I quote, "Simply put, unsustainable debt is helping to keep too many poor people in poverty." What's more important is that his decision caused a lot of optimism among the advocates of poor nations. British Prime Minister Tony Blair just announced his country's forgiveness of the debts owed by all African nations. These world leaders hope that other lender nations, and perhaps institutions as well, will follow suit and help alleviate the international debt burden of borrower nations. If this movement takes hold and more debt relief is offered to borrower nations, a lot of borrower countries around the world could begin to breathe a little easier and to divert some of their resources to further improve their economies. Also very important is the fact that by pardoning debt countries or organizations, we can alleviate the fear that some debtor countries might declare their inability or unwillingness to pay back the debt. Such a declaration could cause a lot of financial repercussions in the international money and capital markets. With such debt relief, opportunities for economic growth and prosperity would be generated worldwide. An interconnected, globalized society will allow us to increasingly pursue win-win relationships in all areas of human endeavors. This is because regardless of the great disparities of income per capita and the concentration of wealth in the world today, for example, the 10 most industrialized nations have 100 times higher income per capita than the more than 50 least developed nations. Every nation, every organization, and every individual can now contribute with something unique that others do not have due to the great cultural diversity of the world. In this regard, negotiation and mediation interests, rather than resolving conflict, should be the new approach towards creating alliances, partnerships, associations, and joint ventures around the world. Yes, resistance to change will always be there, and this topic will be addressed next by my colleague Ken Golden. But the motivation to improve and to enrich our lives is also increasingly important, as is demonstrated by the ever higher expectation generated by the electronic and mass media today. We in education, business or government should all strive to create at all levels an effective capacity for negotiation to construct bridges that will translate into increased growth opportunities and profit. A broad systematic management approach is essential, since an opportunity can easily become a source of conflict without an appropriate business plan or a statement of purpose. A systems viewpoint will always be multicultural, multidimensional, and multidisciplinary. We must all strive to adopt in our daily work and our daily life in general. Let us all work towards creating opportunities for each other through shared learning, production, and services. The organizations of the future will master change by maximizing the opportunities it brings while minimizing the tension and conflict it often entails. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Khalil. Let us begin the first question and answer session. We will try to answer as many questions as possible. Therefore, we ask that only one question be asked per phone call, and that these questions be as brief as possible. You may call the studio directly at the phone numbers or fax which now appear on your screen. We remind you to make your phone calls at a distance from the monitor to avoid feedback. Our first question is from the Dominican Republic. It is from the Centro de Gestión e Investigación in the city of Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic.
What are the risks that an organization encounters when the organization is inserted in very deeply in that country, in order for this organization that resides in a very poor country or in a country that is very much in debt, how can they take advantage of all the globalization opportunities?
Dr. Khalil?
That is a very interesting question. With the globalization, the world will be open for every country in reality. And the problem of international debt could be solved quite easily if the organization can work internationally on what we refer to sometimes as supplier's credit, for example. In other words, you don't have to pay now in hard currency to the supplier or the producer of the product if you are buying from outside. You could always arrange with him through some negotiation that he will finance you with the funds needed for you to import whatever you need to import, and then he'll give you some terms like a year or 2 or 3, so that you can receive the product and hopefully sell it, and then after that you can pay him in a year or 2.
Thank you. Our next question is via fax. It is from Mexico. It is from the Instituto Tecnológico de Tijuana in Tijuana, Baja California, Mexico. And it has to do with, it's to Dr. Khalil, and it has to do with the Y2K problem. What particular impact or problems do you see with technology and with artificial intelligence and the upcoming Y2K issue? Dr. Khalil?
Well, the Y2K is a big problem. In the United States here and West Europe and maybe Japan, we have been able to address it, not necessarily 100% solve it on a 100% basis, but we are able to, I believe, solve it to the level of about 80 or 90%. So we still might experience some little problems here and there. My fear is that in the rest of the world, the countries have not been yet aware, or if they have been aware, they have not done enough to solve this problem in their localities with their computers. When we apply the Y2K problem to the artificial intelligence, which I'm very interested in, since we are in the United States here, are among the pioneers in this field, we have been able to nail this problem down and solve it. Hopefully when other countries will start using artificial intelligence, they will receive ones, because this is a recent phenomenon if you wish, they will receive ones that are Y2K proof. So we've got to be aware of the Y2K problem in Latin America, in the Middle East, in Asia, because that could be a very significant thing that could affect our economic progress and our opportunities. Thank you.
Our next question is from Spain. It is from la Universidad de Alicante, San Vicente, Alicante, Spain.
Buenas tardes. My question for Dr. Khalil is the following. In the current world context, which has so many complexities and changes, what is the role that you see as prospecting as what kind of a role does prospecting play in the organizations to foretell and forecast the future as far as strategies?